Hi, I'm CJ and this is my RC channel. In this series of videos, I'm going to be doing a little departure from my normal focus for this channel, which is radio control cars and airplanes. And I'm going to be assembling a bicycle, specifically a 26-inch fat tire Mongoose Dolomite ALX. Now, the ALX is a higher level than the regular Dolomite, and there's a lot of advantages for a very small amount of extra money, about 25% more, from $400 to $500. You get aluminum frame, aluminum seat post, a lot of other upgrades. You get lighter wheels, better drivetrain. It's a long list, which I'll go over in detail later. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about my experience with bicycling and why I think I'm qualified to make this video for you guys. I worked as a bike mechanic for years, summer type job when in school, and I've been a bike racer for years as well before I was badly injured. I raced BMX, I moved on to mountain biking, I raced mountain biking. I also did off-road duathlons and raced triathlons, and so I did on-road riding as well. So I have a lot of experience. In any event, a back injury has prevented me from riding for the last 10 years. And due to inactivity and the inability to do regular exercise as a result of those injuries, my doctor really wants me to get some cardio. And since I used to be a bike racer, which she also was, she suggested that I try to get back into the sport on a bike that is going to give me a cushier ride. So with the fat tire bikes, you can air the tires down to anywhere from 6 to 10 pounds, and that makes for a cushier ride. I've also got a suspension seat post, which I'll be adding to this bicycle. And I'm also going to do a variety of other modifications, because my first urge would be to spend anywhere from $2,500 to $5,500 on a high performance bicycle. Those are the type of bicycles I used to have. But not knowing how long I was going to stay with this, I wanted to start out on a budget and then do a few improvements to upgrade the bike in areas that I would want things to change. So that is why I went with the Dolomite ALX. As I said, it's about $500, and that was delivered to my door. I did not get any special deals on this. That is the price you would get at Walmart, and they provided the free shipping as well. So I'm going to go ahead, open the box. The assembly that you're going to see is basically the same assembly you would see on almost any type of bicycle that you're going to get in a box. They usually come with the brakes and gear train adjusted for you. You might have to make a few subtle adjustments, but most things are pretty much set up. You have to put on handlebars, tighten goosenecks, put on a front wheel, make a few other adjustments, put pedals on, such as that, and then you've got a bike ready to go. But there's also a lot of small tuning things that you might encounter if the gears aren't shifting well, and it's better to learn to do those things yourself than to have to take them to the shop all the time. It doesn't take a lot of mechanical skill, just a little bit of know-how and understanding how things work on a bicycle, and you should be able to do these things yourself. So let's open the box and get going. Now, you're not going to need a lot of complex tools for this process. Good old razor knife can really help. But as far as the bicycle goes, mainly you're going to need a few Allen wrenches. And there's only a few sizes that are really required. Be willing to bet these are pedals. And I'm correct, pedals and a quick release, undoubtedly, for our front wheel. That's one of the upgrades on the ALX versus the regular Dolomite, is that instead of having bolt-on wheels, which makes it more difficult if you need to take the bike partially apart and get it into a car, it's having quick release. Now, normally I would lift this out, but technically I'm not supposed to lift anything, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the box, because I'm going to have to cut this box apart anyway to get it out in the trash. Now, this whole bundle here is held together by a bunch of zip ties. And all you need for that is, you could use a knife, but you could end up scratching your paint, things like that. A pair of nippers or a pair of diagonal cutters will work great. Everything's packed very nicely. Everything is well shielded from being scratched or damaged. It's got foam, cardboard, things like that wrapped around it to protect the paint. Keep the items together instead of having them bouncing around in the box, banging up against each other. A lot of people have decent things to say about this particular bike. They're definitely on the low end, and as such, it's going to be a little heavier than some options, but that's relative, and that's one of the advantages of the ALX over the regular Dolomite, is the number of aluminum parts, which reduce the weight of the bike. As I recall, the difference in weight between the ALX and the regular Dolomite is about 7 or 8 pounds. And one of those items is this right here, is a aluminum seat post, which I'll be swapping, as I mentioned. It's got a decent road style saddle or mountain style saddle. It's not a very cushy one if you're looking for something soft. Bike saddles are one of those things that most manufacturers just throw something on there that they kind of expect you're going to swap for what works for you, especially people who do a lot of riding. I used to do about 5,000 miles a year on average training, and that's a lot of miles sitting on one of these little seats. So finding one that fits your anatomy and gives you the right amount of cushioning is very important. So here we go. Our front tire is free. And as you can see, that's a really wide tire. When they say a fat tire bike, they are not kidding. These are 26 inch by 4 inch. So it's big. And again, you're running low pressure, so that makes for a cushy ride. Now you'll notice that there are these holes cut here, and you can see this rubber-like surface. That's just a liner, that's not your inner tube. And they are made to be like this. That reduces weight. Now, one of the upgrades from the regular Dolomite to the ALX, they both have disc brakes. Both of them have mechanical disc brakes versus hydraulic. But what the ALX has over the regular Dolomite is that it has a 180 millimeter front disc versus the 160 that you have front and rear on the regular Dolomite. So you got a little more braking surface. Now when I was picking that wheel up, I felt a loose spoke or two, and I'm going to definitely want to go over that. Something you should definitely check on your bike and just kind of give them a... Truing wheels is kind of an art form. When I say truing a wheel, you're adjusting the spokes to have the same amount of dish shape to either side, so the wheel is centered over the hub, and also making sure that it's centered within the hub as a distance of radii. So getting all that balanced properly requires a special bench and a certain skill set and a lot of practice. So if you think there's an issue, if you've got a wobble in your wheel, I don't necessarily recommend doing it yourself unless you know what you're doing. That's something you should take to the shop and not attempt at home. Okay, now it's time to get this into a repair stand where I'll take the rest of all this paper off and get the handlebars going. If you plan on riding a lot, you want to be an experienced rider, this is something you're going to take up as a long-term activity, getting a repair stand is a really good idea. They're not very heavy, they're not very expensive. I mean, expensive is relative, of course. You're talking a reasonable percentage of the cost of the bicycle itself, probably over $100, $125 at a base level. But it's going to pay off, because flipping a bike upside down, putting it on the handlebars in the seat like you did when you were a kid, doesn't work as well with modern bikes. You can damage your shifters. Depending on the type of shifters and what angle you've got them located, you can't really tune properly with the bike in that position. So having one of these on hand is a good idea. And I'm going to go over tools in depth in another video in this series. I'm going to recommend a specific toolkit or two for you. Picking up tools one at a time may sound like a good idea, but it's not cost effective. If you just bite the bullet and spend between $60 and $80 on a reasonably complete toolkit, you will have everything you're going to need throughout the life of your bike and multiple bikes. If you carry this on into the future, if you get yourself another mountain bike with, like, say, full suspension, you get yourself a road bike, you've got a girlfriend who rides with you, or a wife, kids, etc., having that toolkit is going to be very necessary eventually. And again, buying, you know, a tool here and a tool here at $15 to $25 a piece, you're going to pay 3-4 times as much versus buying a kit. So I'm going to go over that and make some recommendations. Drag this box out of the way. Now, how do you clamp your bike into this contraption? Okay, there are various tubes on the bike that you can clamp onto, but which one should you use? Well, for this bike, we've got a bunch of cables running underneath our top tube. This would be one normal place to go by. The next location is here. Now, there is a cable, but it's off to the side. We can easily clamp around the tube right here and hang the bike without any problem. So what I need to do is rotate this assembly to put it in a normal position for how the bike is going to hang. I'm going to let it hang a little nose down. That helps keep the fork in position. So now I'm going to continue to remove the rest of these coverings here. And it's mostly just thin cardboard with a little bit of tape holding it on. I'm going to go ahead and leave the coverings on the handlebars for the moment, on the outers, while I'm getting this attached. And I'll remove those in a minute. They definitely did a very good job of packaging. I definitely compliment them on that. This is a 3.5 millimeter hex wrench. Getting a good set of T-wrenches is a good idea. So this is just a little, some warning information about how to use your quick release and what not to do and what not. Let's just give it a quick look. Warning, many models are equipped with quick release device on the wheel hubs. These quick release devices are used to facilitate the removal and installation of the wheels without the use of tools. Well, yeah, that's kind of obvious, and we should know that. Failure to properly adjust quick release may result in wheel loss and serious personal injury. Well, that's absolutely true. If your front wheel falls off, if you go over a bump or a jump, and yeah, you're going to be in for a surprise when the forks go down to the ground, dig in, and you go right over the end. That would not be a fun afternoon out riding. So basically what you want to do is, a quick release is like a cam. When it's up like this, it's loose. And as you can see, there's a rounded area that's going to fit on this like that. As you close this, you can see that this side is taller than the edges over here. That is going to push down on this, and that's going to clamp your wheel in place. Now, when you assemble this, you want one of these little springs on either side. Those are just there to help facilitate putting the wheel on the bike. It helps make sure that the quick release is kind of balanced left and right, so it goes onto the forks easily. So just pull off the end cap and one of the two springs. Plastic nub here, protecting the bolt. That also keeps the bolt from not banging a hole in the side of the box during shipping. I need to grab something to get that off. It's fairly sturdily stuck on there. A pair of pliers should do. Now, which side you put your quick release on is not really important. It's up to you. In the rear, it's best to put it on the brake side because you've got your derailleur and such over there. On the front, the right-hand side of the bike is cleaner, so that's where I usually put it. I know someone's going to say, I'm doing it on the wrong side. It does not matter. As long as the quick release isn't interfering with anything, it doesn't matter which side you put it on, front or rear. So, since this is the first time you put it on, make it a little loose at first. Slide it up into the fork, close it down, and twist it until it's tight as you can make it. Then, release the quick release, tighten the skewer some more, and then try clamping it. And it's kind of a trial and error until it's hard to get this to clamp down. You don't want it to be so hard that you have to hit it with a mallet. Okay, that's unnecessary. At the same time, if it's too easy to clamp, it's not on tight enough. You really want it to be secure. So, you know, it's a balance. Use your best judgment. Be realistic about it. Okay, that needs to be a little tighter. There we go. So now some forks, and this is one of them, at the bottom of the fork where the drop-ins are, they've got some little studs that stick out. Let me see if I can move the camera down here for you. Okay. So we can see these little studs, these little nubs here and here. Those prevent the wheel from dropping out, even if it's a little loose. Even when the cam, if I were to release this cam all the way, like so, see, the wheel is dropped down, but it can't fall out because it is at least tight enough that those nubs prevent it from falling through, which is an added safety measure. So again, now what I need to do is I need to lift the camera, but get the camera back up so I can lift the wheel all the way up so this is seated at the top of the dropout, and then close the quick release again. And I'm going to demonstrate that right now. So just hold, put one hand underneath the rim, put your thumb at the top of the fork, lift the wheel up and hold it centered, and then close your quick release. Now, I'm actually touching the fork here. That's not a no-no or anything, but it's better to have it a little away from there. So I'm going to go ahead, twist the angle a little bit, and that's fine. Pointing it rearward so it's out of the way. It's not going to catch anything and flip open. You never want to have it pointing forward or pointing down. Just put it backwards and off an angle from the fork and you're fine. Do you find these videos to be helpful, useful to you? then please help me keep this channel going by donating. Click the link up here and you can donate safely through PayPal on either a one-time or a monthly basis, your choice. So as you can hear, there's a little brake noise, so that's going to require a little adjustment. I'm going to show you how to do that. But this is where we get into the how you like things. How do you like to ride? Where do you want the brake angle in relationship to the handlebars? I'm normally a 2-finger brake lever guy. I ride with 1 or 2 fingers over the lever, the other 2 fingers wrapped around the handle grip like this. That way I've got my brake right there. Your front brake gives you the most strength, the most stopping power. The rear tire can just drag and slide, but the front tire provides 60 to 80%, more or less. Bicycles, cars, it's all the same. Front wheels give you the big braking. So we've got some adjustments to make. Let's see, got to put on some pedals. Okay, one of the advantages is that back here we have a freewheel instead of, we have a cassette instead of a freewheel. Okay, and here's the difference. A freewheel is the gear, they both have this backwards ratcheting action here like that. But the difference is that a cassette, the gears are separate. So the rotating mechanism that spins backwards and then locks when you pedal forward and then backwards again, that is a separate item attached to the hub. And the gears can be taken off, switched for a different set, and replaced for less money than it costs to do the entire assembly. A freewheel, which is what comes on the regular Dolomite, does not have that 2-piece relationship. It is one assembly, and thus if you want to change it, it's more expensive. That's the main difference. Now, let's see, we've got Shimano Turnigy TX. This is definitely low-end equipment, but that's not that big a deal. They're decent. If it shifts clean, it's not that big a deal. The newer stuff might be a little, or the higher end stuff, it's a little lighter, it may shift a teeny bit better, but unless you're a professional rider, you might not even be able to tell the difference between 2 bikes outfitted with different sets of gear. So, start by learning to ride, and this is decent equipment. And if it's adjusted properly, you shouldn't have any troubles. Now, another advantage, the aluminum frame has a separate dropout. You see this brushed aluminum, almost chrome looking piece here that holds our derailleur? That's called a derailleur hanger. On the steel bikes, that is an integral part of the frame. It is welded in place. You cannot replace it. These occasionally get bent or broken altogether. I've had that happen during a race. It's very frustrating because you lose the ability to shift gears. The derailleur can literally be hanging down off of the bike. And if it's welded to the frame and you bend it, getting it bent back in correctly is difficult. There's a special tool for bending derailleur hangers, but it's almost like truing wheels in that it's almost an art. Getting it perfect is very difficult. It's far easier to take out a couple of screws, take the wheel off, replace this hanger with a new one, and be back in business. So that's definitely a bonus, that if this gets bent, you unscrew it, put it on, and when you go mountain biking, you can catch this derailleur on something and snatch it back and bend that hanger. It can and does happen. So things to think about. Another advantage of this over the ALX over the standard Dolomite is the number of gears we get, not just the quality of the cassette here. We have 8 instead of 7 rear gears, and we have 2 in the front. That gives us 16 possible gear options. And the standard model has a single gear up front and only 7 in the rear. Now, a lot of bikes today are based around the single gear philosophy up front, and that's one of the changes I'm going to be making down the road. But to do a single gear up front, the higher performance bikes that use that methodology are using a much larger cassette. It's either 10, 11, or 12 gears in the rear. Now, the more gears you put back here, the thinner your chain has to be, because you're working in the same amount of space. So the metal on the teeth is actually a little thinner, and the chain itself is narrower, thus it's potentially weaker. So those are all things to consider. I'm going to be kind of splitting the difference and going with 11 in the rear and a single up front, and that gives you a broader range. And this your climbing gear, your most powerful gear, is a lot larger. So you've got this much bigger set of gears back here, and a different derailleur, of course, to go with that. But that also allows me to eliminate the front derailleur and go to a single up here. And my long-term plan for this is to make it an e-bike, and that will involve mounting a motor here, and that'll have a single gear regardless. So that's another reason to go to the larger, more higher gear count in the rear, not necessarily larger. And it looks like there's a little brake adjustment needed back here too. I'm going to go over how to adjust brakes in detail. I'll do that in a separate video. And for the moment, I'm not going to worry about doing the seat post swap. I'm just going to set this up as is. So we have another quick release. In addition to our wheels, we have a quick release on our seat post. And that's a little off angle there. Whoever put that on didn't put it quite right. Well, that's not scratches, that's just some dirt that was rubbed on there one way or another. But I definitely like the color scheme, the kind of slate, charcoal, dark gray color. Let me get a tool or two out. So, pedals. This is what comes with it. And these are just plastic pedals. They don't feel like they are bearings. Just feels like there's a bushing in there. It doesn't even feel like it's greased. So if you have nothing else, and this is what you're going to ride with, at least initially when you get your bike, get some oil down in there, pop off this little cap on the end, see what's going on in there. If there's a bolt, take it out, take the spindle out, put grease in there, bolt it back on, cap it back off, and at least it'll get you by for a while. They don't have the best grip, but they're probably not horrible, but these little plastic nubs are going to wear down quickly. If this is a bike for one of your kids, definitely get them a decent set of pedals. They don't have to be very expensive. If you go on Amazon, there's a lot of options under $30 a set that are going to be a decent pedal. Now, also bear in mind there's a left and a right. Okay, and you're going to see an indicator somewhere on the pedal. Now, it's too bad that that isn't stamped into the plastic, because that sticker isn't going to last very long. The right one's already gone, as you can see. So once they're on, you're generally not going to be taking them off unless it's an issue getting them in and out of a car. But they do need to be greased. So I went ahead at the time I ordered this and ordered a few other option parts. And top of my list was a set of pedals. And this is what I decided to go with. This is actually a 4-bearing pedal. There's a pair of sealed bearings here and another pair out here two at either side of the spindle. And they've got a decent count of these nubs here. These can be replaced. They screw on, and as you can see, if they look sharp, it's because they absolutely are. So we also have our left or right stamped onto the pedal itself, so that's not going to come off. So let me see if I can get you close here. Just a moment. We've got CR-L and CR-R. So they also give us a wrench, because these not only take a wrench here, but even better, you can use a hex wrench on them. And the reason the hex wrench is better is that, first off, you need pretty much a bike-specific wrench for these, because they are so narrow, the surface that you grab onto. Most over-the-counter crescent wrenches and even a lot of box wrenches won't fit that gap. They're too wide. It's just by design. If you see a set of bike-specific wrenches, they're very thin. They're only about 4 millimeters thickness. So let me set one of these down, and I'm going to go ahead and start putting these pedals on. And the reason you have a left and a right is because they are threaded in two different directions. They're threaded in such a way that the pedal direction that you spin is constantly trying to tighten the pedal, so that one of them does not loosen itself up just through friction and motion. I wish I had a little bit of anti-seize. I really should get a fresh bottle of that. Wouldn't be bad to put a little on these. You know, it's not that they would loosen, it just helps you get them off later if you need to. Definitely a good product to keep around in your shop. I can just pull off these little left and right stickers that they put on the cranks. As you can see, there's one on the right one. Those do not need to stay on the bicycle. Now, another thing I recommend getting, I ordered one, but they sent me the wrong size, so I'm gonna get another one on order. Not an expensive item, about $6 to $12 depending. Some type of protection for this bar here, because every once in a while your chain will pop off one of the rings. It might pop off to the outside or the inside up front when it's down low here, and it's going to smack onto this bar, and it can bang around on there. It can damage, aside from just chipping your paint, it can really gouge up the aluminum tubing, and you want to avoid that if possible. And they make these things that are basically like a piece of rubber. Some of them clip on, some of them are stickers with a thick pad, rubber pad. Some of them wrap around and Velcro onto themselves. The stick-on ones are pretty good. That's definitely a decent way to go. The wrap-around ones that Velcro are probably your best bet, because number one, you can take them off and clean them if you need to. If it gets in the way, again, you can take it off, you can trim them to size, and they're not going to come off. The ones that stick on, if you do a lot of winter riding, a lot of water, rain, mud, snow, eventually that could infiltrate the sticky surface and they'll start to peel. And then you got to peel them up, and it's messy. You got to get some glue going, get all that glue off, put another one on. So my recommendation is the type that wrap around and Velcro in place. That's just me. You guys do what you want. But I recommend getting some type of protection there. There's also some kits that aren't a bad idea. They are similar to that stick-on piece, but they're larger, and there's more pieces, like a piece for the lower part of your frame here to fend off rocks and things that fly up off of your tire and will hit your frame. That's not as big a deal with an inexpensive aluminum bike. If this was a carbon fiber bike, yeah, absolutely. But it's not. And it's a $500 bike. So do you want to spend around $40 or more getting stickers to protect the paint? Or would you rather spend that money on something, you know, more consequential? It's up to you. Whatever you like. Okay, I think it's time to do brake adjustment. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel. If you click the bell icon, you'll receive notifications every time I launch a new video. Thank you for watching.